So last week I flew to Dallas, Texas to see Pentatonix live on their Holidays Around the World tour. It was a phenomenal experience, and while I was there I took a ton of notes, things I really enjoyed and noticed at the show, so that one, I could use them for my own future concerts, and two, so I could share them with you. So if you don't want any spoilers for their concerts, for example, say you're seeing them later on in the year and you don't want any spoilers, don't watch this video because there's going to be a ton of spoilers in this video. Something that I was really impressed with the concert starting off is the fact that the concert actually started on time. It was a 7 o'clock start time and they started on time, which I really appreciate in the sense that I've gone to a ton of concerts where the artist comes out way later than they say they are and you're kind of just sitting there for like 35 minutes just waiting. We got to, I think, the venue at like 7:10 and the opening act was actually already on stage. The opening act for this part of the tour, I don't know if it's the same for the entire tour, was a girl named Tom. Really great artist. I think that they came as contenders or won one of the talent shows, whether it be The Voice or America's Got Talent. I think it was The Voice. Phenomenal artists. Something that I really noticed that was interesting was the fact that Scott came out. So Scott actually has a song with Scott being from Pentatonix, obviously, but I assume you know that if you're watching this video. But Scott has a song with a girl named Tom. I think they co-wrote it, and I think he might be a feature on it. But what I found really interesting is he actually came out for that song performed with the opening act. So he was actually shown before the rest of Pentatonix, which I found very interesting in the sense that usually the artists don't do that, in the sense that maybe they would play that song later on. But it's interesting that he came out before the group. I just found that just an interesting note. The opening act definitely played a lot of songs. I think that there was it was like 45 minutes for the opening act, which is a lot as an opening act. Usually it's like, 20 to 30 most, but 45 minutes of music is a lot. And then there was a big gap in between, actually. There was like a 40-minute gap, I think, at least 30 to 40-minute gap. I guess you'd call it an intermission between the opening act and Pentatonix coming on. That's a long time. What I found fascinating, though, is this is now the Pentatonix fan base. What I found really cool about that was they were all in their seats ready to go at 7 o'clock, and they were all listening to the opener. I really thought that was cool, because usually the opener gets no love. The stadium's like a quarter filled, or it wasn't a stadium, but the arena is quarter filled, and nobody really cares. The lights are on, like people are walking up and down, going to the bathroom. No, at 7 o'clock, everybody was in there listening to the opening act, and I thought that was really cool. Another thing that I was really surprised by, and I don't know why, and please don't be offended, I was just surprised to see how many people of all ages were there. There was a lot more young people than I anticipated. I mean, I'm a big fan of them, but I thought that their music typically swung a bit more seasoned, as some might say. Honestly, maybe to some degree I'm comparing it slightly to Home Free, which is another a cappella group. I heard in an interview once that Home Free said that their audience swings into like the 40-year-olds. So I kind of just assumed maybe the same, but there were so many 18, 16, 15, 25 like year-old couples. Like there was like a lot of 30-year-old couples, which I was like, this is really cool to see just the generational span between the 30-year-old couples, the 80-year-old couples, the parents that are 40 years old with 12-year-old kids. Like really cool just to see everybody. There was everybody from all walks of life at that concert. Something that I really enjoyed. Now like we're getting into the actual concert. This is like the opening of the concert. Everything was choreographed with the lights. I love a show that is choreographed with the light shows. So every hit, they know what the tempo of the song is going to be. They know what the hits are, and everything's kind of in time with the lights, because that just gives a much tighter and cool experience as a viewer, because everything now, when a big bang hits, the lights go off, everything's just cohesive, and it just creates a full-on, not only are you getting an audio experience, you're also getting a visual experience. Let's also talk about that, for the fact that this was a sold-out show, and they've done plenty of sold-out shows on this tour. What I thought was really cool is the sense that I would say that acapella kind of falls into a bit of a niche category, where like it's not typically something that everybody might listen to. But what blew my mind is still the popularity inside of a niche category, in the sense of they were able to sell out a pretty big arena with their niche category. So what I learned from that is the fact that you just do you and do it really well and do it for a really long time, and it will pay off. And they like there's a saying, there's riches in niches. So you just find your niche and you just go for it. But like sometimes you think like to yourself, oh, who's gonna care about this? Like I don't know if I should do this because nobody's gonna care about it. It's too niche. You go and do it, and you be you. What I thought was really cool, since there weren't any instruments on stage for the majority of the show, is Pentatonix had 2 choreographed dancers on there, interpretive dancers, for most of the show, which I thought was cool because it added some really cool visual elements, I suppose, as well as some of the visuals that they had in the back. But because there was no instruments, it just added a cool almost theatrical feel to the concert. So now if you see my little vlog of going to the concert, you saw that they had some technical difficulties, which what I think now, seeing the concert in full, I think what happened is they played a track. I think that they used, I'm gonna break it, I think that they used backing tracks for the White Winter Hymnal. It just, I don't know, to be honest, if the microphones would really pick up the clapping and the stomping like as clear as they were. And it sounded very similar to the technical difficulties that they were hearing earlier. So I think that was a glitch, but they handled it really, really well. It didn't like so many artists would get flustered and be like, oh, what's going on? No, they was like, hey, we're gonna do this song later, no worries, which I thought was really cool. Now, something that really stands out between professional artists and beginner artists is the fact of how you handle mistakes. Mistakes are gonna happen, period, no matter what level you are. So it's how you handle them that really makes the big difference. So something interesting that I noticed in the concert is when Pentatonix brought the opening act back on, they actually did a couple songs together. It was really interesting to see that because Pentatonix have been together for so long and so much longer and have this maturity of musicianship, it was really interesting to see that maturity in vocal quality. Now, the opening act had a great vocals. They were definitely talented musicians, and I mean, I think they won The Voice or came in second place. You know that they're talented, but it was interesting that it's something that's earned only by doing the industry and being in the industry and being consistent for however many years. And I think that just comes with this maturity of it. And it was just interesting to notice and be like, okay, no matter how talented you are, that level is just, the more you do it, the better you get. Now, one thing I really, really enjoyed was the banter between the band. They were talking to each other and laughing and having a good time. You could tell if they were friends on stage and they were sharing that experience with you as the audience. In addition to that, this was a really cool banter kind of move with the audience. Two things. One, they filmed a TikTok, so they had already started filming things on stage with a TikTok prior to, and then during the concert they brought in the TikTok, which is just kind of a cool way to, like, one, engage the crowd more, two, kind of break up the concert so it's not just song. You feel like there's all these different things you're talking about. And this was probably my favorite part of the concert because I thought it was so unique, was the wheel of Christmas songs. So what they did with this is they had a big wheel, and because they have so many Christmas songs, they can't play all of them. So they had a bunch of songs on a wheel, and what they did is they'd spin it, and at every show, it would be land on a different one. So they play a minute or two of those songs, rather than the whole thing. Rather than having to choose which ones, and the people got upset because they didn't get it. I just thought it was such a cool concept, because as somebody like me that has 115 songs out there, 120 songs, whatever it is, I can't play everyone at every gig. So there are a couple that I do like to play, I just don't know how to choose. So, if I had a wheel where I could just swing it and every gig you play a little bit of a different one, I thought that it was a really, really cool concept. Really cool way to engage the crowd, but also really cool way to get your songs out there that you wouldn't be able to choose. You don't have to make the choice is made for you. Now, being right next to the sound booth was really cool because I got to watch a little bit of how they interact with each other. For example, the sound guy has a phone, like literally like a corded phone, and I started flashing and he picked it up and he's like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, that's really interesting how they communicate with each other and stuff. It was really, really cool. That also being said, Ben Hasdo was also there shooting a bunch of video, and I was texting with him and everything. I said, hey, I'll be in town, like, let's see if we can meet up. So we weren't able to meet up, but we were able to say hello to each other at the actual concert, which was really, really cool. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen my interview with him, definitely check it out. Just talking creative stuff. Now, one thing that I found really unique about the crowd, I would say about 90% of the show, the crowd was seated and wasn't standing. They were seated and watching the performance, almost like if you were at a play or the ballet, as opposed to a lot of concerts I'm at, the crowd is standing the whole time. So it's just an interesting dynamic. There were a couple songs that people got up and danced, but it was just an interesting dynamic to see the difference in crowds. One of the last things I thought was really cool was, again, going back to that stage banter between the artists, was this cool story time where they tell the story between their favorite songs or what they loved about songs, and it was really cool to see each artist and each band member, group member, highlighted in different ways. For example, Kevin had this phenomenal cello boxing solo section. Mitch would tell stories, Scott would tell stories, Kirsty would tell stories, Matt would tell stories, Matt would direct this, Scott would direct this. It was just cool. Everybody, there wasn't necessarily a front man, where Scott did a lot of the talking, I guess, but apparently he's been like the front man kind of idea since even the sing off. But everybody had their own spotlight, which I thought was really cool in the sense that they all were able to talk, they all were able to tell a story, they all were able to, communicate with the crowd, and it was like the whole group was involved, which I thought was really, really cool. All in all, it was a really, really great concert. I really enjoyed it. I would definitely see them again. And if you're on the fence of seeing them in concert, I highly recommend take the time, go to the concert. You will definitely enjoy it. Hope you enjoyed that. Definitely consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video. Check out my own original music. It would mean so much to me. God bless and peace out.